Welcome to the Explainer. We usually think of AI as operating on this flawless, perfect plane of mathematical certainty, right? We picture cold, calculating logic. But today, we're diving into a massive forensic mystery hiding right at the bare metal of your computer. And it answers exactly why we honestly cannot trust modern AI math. The physical infrastructure running our digital world is actually plagued by localized entropy and destructive hardware guessing. So let's unpack the root of this computational drift.
Okay, wrap your head around this shocking number right out of the gate. 80 to 90% of modern AI compute cycles, they aren't actually doing precise math. No, they're basically just making highly educated guesses at the hardware level. When these massive language models are doing their heavy lifting, generating text, compiling code, mimicking human reasoning, they're not calculating an absolute ground truth reality. They're fundamentally forced to make approximations just to process the sheer fire hose of data fast enough so it feels instantaneous to us. Kyle McLean-Smith really hits the nail on the head in our source material here. The machine is physically bound to make these guesses. As he says, it's fundamentally an approximation system, not real arithmetic. And this is the core problem. We treat these sophisticated systems like digital oracles handing down absolute truth. But pop the hood, and the engine driving the whole shebang is essentially just an estimation machine. So why? Why is our hardware guessing instead of calculating? And what exactly is causing this flaw? Well, down in the silicon, we've got a clash between two totally different hardware brains. On one side, there's the frantic, dart-throwing floating point unit. Let's call it the FPU Gambler. On the other side, we have the precision-focused arithmetic logic unit, or the ALU surveyor. The FPU is built to chew through heavy matrix math wildly fast, but it's a lossy guessing game. It literally cuts corners to win the race. The ALU, though, it deals strictly in exact, verifiable hardware truth. It's slower, methodical, and absolutely perfect. The scary part is that right now, modern AI relies almost entirely on the wildly guessing gambler.
To hit those blistering speeds, the FPU Gambler uses completely secret C tables burned directly into the chip by the manufacturers. And because of this highly guarded proprietary hardware logic, your computer's approximation of a crazy complex equation might actually be slightly different down in the decimals than my computer's. Researchers call this non-deterministic drift. It means getting exact one-to-one mathematical reproducibility across different machines is literally physically impossible. The exact same inputs on two different chips can and will give you slightly different answers. Crazy, right? Say computers don't have infinite memory, so they constantly round off microscopic bits to fit continuous real numbers into fixed digital slots. This leads to floating point non-associativity. Basically, just changing the order of your additions gives you completely different final results. The associative property of math we all learned in grade school, it just completely breaks down in the hardware. And over billions of concurrent AI operations, these tiny rounding errors violently compound. It's like building a skyscraper out of a leaning tower of cards. Eventually, that foundational instability is going to catch up with you.
And this triggers a devastating phenomenon known as the wood chipper effect. This is where exact data gets irreversibly shredded. Think about the steps here. First, the AI ingests exact, specific source data. Next, the FPU violently approximates the math using those secret silicon tables for speed. And finally, because that math was fundamentally just a guess and not a trackable, precise calculation, the original data provenance is destroyed forever. The exact mathematical lineage is literally ground into dust.
Think of the FPU Gambler as a giant digital blender. Once your data passes through these lossy approximations, you can never, ever work backward to find the exact mathematical path. You might look at a dark purple smoothie and broadly guess, okay, yeah, there are blueberries in there, but you absolutely cannot reverse engineer that forensic smoothie back into the exact individual whole berries that went in. The physical state of the data has been permanently altered by the hardware.
Now, this microscopic hardware glitch scales up into a massive real-world nightmare. It completely wipes out digital trust. Researchers actually call this the liquidation of contributors. When the machine grinds up human effort using those approximations, it destroys the chain of title for the authors, coders, and artists whose work trained the model. Without an exact deterministic mathematical path, you simply can't verify who created what. Human identity is literally liquidated by the hardware. So put this into perspective for a second. Imagine AI managing massive enterprise finances, independently negotiating complex legal contracts, or running autonomous medical and flight systems. Can we really accept a foundation built on a gambler's guess when human lives and trillions of dollars are on the line? Absolutely not.
We are hurtling toward a future where relying on this foundation of guesswork creates unmanageable legal and real-world liabilities. You simply cannot audit a system that cannot remember its own math. All right, so here is the crucial pivot in our forensic mystery. If the FPU is permanently mangling data, triggering this destructive wood chipper effect, and making high-stakes digital trust impossible, how on earth do we fix it? How do we regain true forensic accountability? Well, we have to find a way to strip away the probabilistic guessing entirely and force the machine to tell us the undeniable mathematical truth. The incredible thing is, the hero of our story has actually been sitting inside our computers this entire time. To solve this, we must shift our core AI math functions away from the frantic FPU Gambler and hand them completely over to the exact ALU surveyor. While the Gambler destroys evidence in this reckless pursuit of speed, the surveyor acts as a globally accountable universal witness. It really is the ultimate antidote to computational drift. Because the ALU surveyor flat out refuses to guess. It performs exact, verifiable integer arithmetic, where 1 + 1 equals exactly 2, every single time, on every single CPU on Earth. It operates on a perfect, relentless metronome of clocked voltage. A high voltage is a 1, a low voltage is a 0. That's it. No hidden seed tables, no proprietary corporate secrets hiding down in the decimals. Just rock-solid, irrefutable hardware facts. But of course, there's a fundamental challenge here. Our human intent is inherently fuzzy, fluid, and probabilistic, right? We speak in nuances and half-thoughts. Cold hardware, though, is rigidly binary. So to safely connect our messy human minds to this perfectly rigid hardware without triggering the gambler's guesswork, we have to cross what researchers call the semiotic bridge. And crossing this bridge is absolutely key to communicating with a machine purely on the surveyor's terms.
Here's how it works. Structured text becomes a sort of divine script. First, we take our fluid human intent and we translate it into strict, universally formatted text like C code or JSON. This structured text acts as an exact, deterministic translator. It takes our fuzzy, complex ideas and compiles them into 100% deterministic physical action at the hardware layer. We're literally mapping human thought directly to undeniable electrical currents. And here is why this is such a massive shift. By strictly relying on the ALU in this exact structured text, we restore Noether's theorem of reversibility to our computing. Now, Noether's theorem is a fundamental principle of physics that gives us total symmetry. In our context, it means the receipt of the digital transaction is never lost. Because there's zero guesswork, we can finally work backward. We can forensically trace every single decision on a mathematically absolute path. The wood chipper effect, completely reversed. By eliminating that probabilistic blending of data, we finally make a true digital autopsy possible when critical systems fail in the real world. Think about it. In a deterministic framework powered by the ALU, investigators can literally freeze the AI, look directly at the code, and cleanly trace the exact steps that led to the error. You simply cannot do a post-mortem on a statistical guess. But with the ALU, we finally have a body to examine. Baking this absolute hardware determinism right into the silicon creates a completely reliable ledger of digital events. It helps us avoid the 50% critical error line. You know, that terrifying threshold where those tiny approximation errors finally compound into catastrophic failure and useless noise. And amazingly, it drives the hidden cost of trust, meaning those overwhelmingly expensive third-party audits and endless compliance delays, down to near zero. Because the math proves itself. So as we increasingly offload our lives, our finances, our legal frameworks, and our physical safety to machines, I want to leave you with this thought. What standard of absolute accountability will you demand from the bare metal? Are you going to settle for the blurry, lossy noise of the gambler, or will you demand the exact forensic truth of the surveyor? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the systems that run our world.